Hello, welcome to my third video. It's a video again of another junk journal. This is for a friend who likes knitting, and I'm going to be seeing her tomorrow when we're off to Yarndale, which I'm really excited about. I've actually put this in a wrapper. This is a wallpaper envelope. The idea of this is from the Rebookery channel. She's on YouTube, so that's the Rebookery. And we'll just open the envelope and have a look at the actual journal itself. The envelope is made from one sheet of wallpaper. I've just put an extra border on there, a little tab, and then just machine sewn around it. But I thought it was just quite a nice little way of presenting the journal to her. So looking at the actual journal itself, I've made it out of a magazine cover that I had about crochet. She does like crochet knitting. It's just basically a yarn crochet knitting type journal really. It's another single signature. Just done a 3-hole pamphlet stitch. Just popped a little Pinterest image on the front. Done eyelets again, front and back like my last one, but instead of ribbon, because it was a wool yarn journal, I did actually crochet some chain and just made that into some little well, chain crochet as a closure. So going in, I lined the inside with an image. This is a page from a machine knitting book that I actually have, and I just cut the page up, and I thought that made quite a nice inside cover. This is a vintage household book. It's on all sorts of things to do with household keeping. I think it's from the 1960s or 70s, and I've just chosen a knitting page. I then knitted a little border that would just go down the side as a little page edge, and that's obviously just the other side of it. This is an image off Pinterest. It's like a vintage flashcard, and obviously Y for yarn, which I just loved that. Fabric strip across and just sewn that on just to make a fabric flip with plenty of journaling. I backed the back, again it's all coffee dyed. Made this tab with some scrapbook paper. I then crocheted the flower and the leaves, glued that on, and it's actually a flip up, so again there's plenty of journaling space. This is a page from a crochet magazine. I just quite like the black and white, and I love this image. It's sort of a play on the gone fishing. This is gone knitting, and I've sewn that down the side. Some ribbon on the edge, lace, and that's the back of the crochet. This is another image from Pinterest. I just printed it straight onto my coffee dyed paper, and I like that, just quite simple. This, I can't remember where I've had that from, but I printed it out, put it onto card, wrapped some yarn and a button on. This is some more of that other vintage household book. Just pop lace on it, and this was single pages, so I did actually pop some scrapbook paper between it just to make it into a double one. This is the washing instructions. That was on the bottom of a vintage 1960s knitting pattern, and I just thought that made quite a nice little well, pocket holder really. Another image off Pinterest. I love the saying on that, and another little vintage Hearth and Home. Originally that was from April 1918. That's just a little printable that I've shrunk down on some coffee dyed squared paper. I loved this knitting public bingo. It's all the funny things people do say to you if you ever knit or crochet in public, and I just thought that was quite funny. Popped some lace on and a couple of buttons, tied some crochet trim just to attach that. This is from another machine knitting book, and just thought that looked quite nice, black and white image. And the back. This is obviously one of the tape measures from another vintage knitting pattern. I just thought that looked quite nice on there. More, plenty of journaling space. You may have seen this in my last journal. I printed out a buttons card, and then I've actually sewn the buttons to that. But again, I've inked around it, and you could journal on there. And popped a little bit of wool just on there as a little trim. More machine knitting book. This is another separate one. I've just popped some lace on. I just think the colours went really nice, and for a knitting themed journal I think it's quite nice to have the patterns and the textures there. Quite brighter this page, but that's fine. I think it still goes. This is an image, I think it's from a Ladybird book, an old Ladybird book about how to knit. I love that. And I've actually popped that onto a brown paper bag so you can pop things in there. Did another flower for the other side. In the centre of my signature, I actually left a whole vintage knitting pattern complete, so she can easily untie the middle, take the pattern out and actually knit this if she wanted to. It was 9 old pennies, so this is again very, very old pattern. It must have been before 1972, and again just quite a nice vintage image really. And that's the back of it. Bit of crochet trim, a separate sort of flower I've crocheted on there for her, another bag to pop things in, and I actually printed that off. I just thought that was again a bit, she has got a good sense of humour, my friend that this is going to tomorrow, and I just thought some of the pretty things you can do with Knitting Nancy was just quite funny really, because you know, with the best will in the world, I don't particularly find that a very pretty thing to do with your Knitting Nancy, so she'll probably find that quite funny. This is an idea I've had off YouTube. It's a little matchbox, matchbook. I've again made it just out of knitting pattern book, and then inside I've just popped a little pad of note paper so she can make lots of notes on that. And I really enjoyed that, and I'll probably pop some of those in my journals from now on. I made an altered paper clip here. This is a Artie May's idea. I just knitted up a little tiny swatch, bit of lace, button, and altered that paper clip so she can obviously take that out and use it anywhere. More machine knitting book page. I've cut a little page tab here out of some similar that I had left to the cover, and I've just popped a little stitch marker on there just for a bit of an added dangle really, and I just thought that went quite well with the pages again. This is an old, a vintage advert for knitting needles, and I decided just to turn that into a little flip out. Made a belly band out of some more old tape measure from an old vintage knitting pattern. Did a crochet trim belly band, and this is obviously from an old book. It was 25 cents, obviously this book, so very old. And I shrunk the image down and turned it into a journaling card. Quite like that, very vintage kind of image. This is more of the machine knitting book. This is another old advert, Everybody Knit with Peyton's Wools, and I found this image on Pinterest which I just loved. It's for an old knitting machine. I mean, $30 for that. It's obviously got somebody's old handwriting on it. Just a lovely little image, and I've backed that with coffee dye paper so that she can write on that if she'd like to. Another vintage picture. This is again off Pinterest. Keep knitting, make, do and mend. And I thought that with a little fold, a little pocket there that I made, just again really went quite nicely with this particular page layout. Popped a bit of crochet trim down there. That's still the household book from the 1960s. This is Crocheting with Lily cotton rug. Again, 25 cents. This is clearly a very vintage image, but just looks lovely. Just clipped in there. Journal on the back, journal on there. Lots and lots of usable space. I love this particular, this might be my favourite layout page. This was from Cigarette Cards. It's just an image, I've shrunk it down. But because of the colours, I decided on this side I would make a crochet granny square pocket in the same sort of colours. I didn't finish the crochet off the final round because I felt I really wanted a more rectangle shape, and popped another vintage image in there. And I really, these were just bits of wool I had in. I loved that I didn't have to go out and buy anything extra. It was just happened to go perfectly colours. More crochet trim on the old an old crochet pattern there. I think it was crochet, or was it knitting? I think that might be a knitting one. Oh, I love this image of this old lady knitting on a double pin needles, obviously French. Such a vintage image, and I was really thrilled with that. Just sewn it down so you can tuck things in if you wish. This is from an Alice in Wonderland image. This was on Pinterest. I love the picture of them, and I think she'll like the quirkiness of that. Another Knitting Nancy image. This again, just a funny little quote, and something that knitters or crocheters will really identify with. when you open your eyes, all your loose ends will be woven in. And that's something I often wish myself. I like the knitting but not the weaving the ends in. I made a little lace belly band. And the back, this is actually a Patricia Viramonte's idea. Just take these out. She used old vintage books. I used some of the knitting pattern books. You make different pockets. I've then sewn around the outside, and I love this because it does make several pockets. You could leave the top open and pop things down there. I made one big vintage tag out of the old machine knit pattern book, and 2 separate journaling cards I've backed again. Oh, I'm sorry about that noise. Just with some knitting pattern images, and then we're back to the closure. So, like I said, we're off to Yarndale tomorrow. I am super excited, and I really can't wait to give this to my friend. It's actually a birthday present, the tickets to Yarndale, and this is just a little souvenir for a birthday. So I hope you've enjoyed looking through that little flip through, and that's all. Thanks for stopping by. Bye bye.